Here we go. This could be the key to getting the DC Extended Universe right back on track. We have a diverse collection of characters waiting to be explored, a talented director/writer who's great at portraying ensemble and buddy relationships, and a killer marketing campaign that seems to indicate a much lighter tone. This should definitely be better than those previous two blunders, right? Right? Let's just do this. It's time to take a look at Suicide Squad. The film begins shortly after Batman v Superman. The Man of Steel is gone, but far from forgotten. In fact, many government officials are questioning just what they would do if another being like him ever posed a threat. This prompts ruthless intelligence agent Amanda Waller to assemble Task Force X, a secret team consisting of the world's deadliest supercriminals. Their goal? To complete covert missions off the record for the government. If they succeed, then they get time off their prison sentences. If they fail, then they are thrown under the bus, absolving their superiors of all accountability. If they disobey orders, then they are terminated using specialized explosives implanted in their necks. Despite the outward lunacy of this plan, it's not long before the self-proclaimed Suicide Squad is called into action to stop a mysterious force ravaging Midway City. Soon, the worst of the worst are forced to come together as heroes in a conflict that none of them could have ever seen coming. With a premise like that, one might expect this to be just the type of movie we need nowadays. A film that takes the oversaturated superhero market and turns it on its head. I mean, we're all familiar with heroes teaming up, but what about villains? How would they play off of each other? How would the atmosphere change? So much can be done with this concept. It's just a shame that the finished product is such an imbalanced mess. It's also a shame that this flick prompted the TV Suicide Squad to be written out of existence, but that's beside the point. Now, for those who are wondering, yes, this is better than Man of Steel and Batman v Superman.
I could have told you that.
While those flicks suffered from a slew of bad ideas and eventually crumbled under the weight of their own pseudo-intellectual aspirations, this one is instead plagued by too many cooks in the kitchen. Most of the film is so clearly indicative of heavy studio meddling that one is left wondering if any part of the director's original vision is still there. This is particularly apparent during the first act, which is just choppy in every sense of the word. We just randomly jump from one location to the next with no semblance of narrative flow. Rather than taking the time to properly introduce the characters, the movie glosses over their respective backstories with rapidly edited vignettes, each set to a different out-of-place pop song to compensate for the forgettable score and to entice fans of Guardians of the Galaxy. It honestly feels like a recap you'd see at the beginning of a TV episode.
On Dragon Ball Z, Goku transformed himself into a Super Saiyan 3, stunning his opponents, the evil wizard Babidi and his forceful henchman Majin Buu, with his uncanny strength and ability. It seemed as though the monster had finally met his match in the form of the Super Saiyan 3. But even at this intense power level, Goku could not topple Majin Buu. Although, for the time being, absolute victory was not Goku's goal.
However, once the plot actually gets going, there is some enjoyment to be found in the journey. Although the relationships are still rushed and disjointed, watching these mismatched bad guys interact does admittedly lead to plenty of cute moments. And it's here that you can tell David Ayer feels the most at home. His direction becomes more coherent when he lets his scenes breathe. When his characters are allowed to just talk, the film gets more engaging and the performances more nuanced. Unfortunately, this doesn't last long, as we're soon thrust into a climax so overblown, artificial, and unfulfilling that it poisons the entire experience. Not only does it fall back on the tired cliche of a dull villain wanting to destroy the world, but it also paves the way for the sad realization that almost none of the main players went through any change. Most of them are exactly the same at the end as they were at the beginning. The script rarely gives them any chance to deviate from their one-note personalities. In spite of this, the actors remain committed throughout, with many of them pulling surprisingly entertaining performances out of pretty shallow material. On top of his usual charisma, Will Smith brings plenty of dramatic weight and dark humor to Deadshot. Margot Robbie has a lot of fun with the giddy energy of Harley Quinn, even if she can't maintain a consistent accent. Viola Davis lends an effectively deadpan conviction to Amanda Waller. Jay Hernandez injects an understated turmoil into El Diablo. And Jai Courtney's manically goofy turn as Captain Boomerang makes for some of his best work since Spartacus. The other members of the squad, such as Adewale Akinoye Agbaje as Killer Croc and Karen Fukuhara as Katana, do their best, but they never really find their footing due to having almost nothing to work with. Instead, we're forced to spend time with the team leader, Colonel Rick Flag, who used to be a lot cooler.
Well, gang, guess I'll be saying...
Dream on, dirtbag. 5 years. You sign up for missions like this for 5 years. If you survive, then you go free. You don't like it, there's a nice warm seat waiting for you back at Bel Rev Correctional.
Tell me, Colonel, what's Waller got on you?
Not a thing. Some of us don't have to be blackmailed into serving their country.
Playing this role is not Tom Hardy, who had other obligations, not Jake Gyllenhaal, who turned it down, but Joel Kinnaman, who seems to be doing his best impression of Stephen Lang. As hard as he tries and as loud as he is, he's just not convincing as a leader. He doesn't have the commanding presence necessary for the role. He comes off as annoying rather than imposing. However, he admittedly feels a bit more natural during the emotional scenes, which means he gets off better than Cara Delevingne. As the Enchantress, she is straight out of Power Rangers, dancing around and hamming it up to no end. But it's hard to blame her given the script. There is literally nothing to her character aside from wanting to destroy the world, which is especially disappointing since she's supposed to be the main antagonist. Now, you might be wondering, what about the Joker? Isn't he the main threat? Why haven't you talked about him yet? Well, the reason is that there's not much to comment on. Despite being marketed as one of the pivotal players, the Clown Prince of Crime is only in the movie for about 10 minutes max.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
That's right. After all of his method acting hijinks, most of Jared Leto's footage was left on the cutting room floor. He doesn't even interact with any of the main cast besides Robbie, and most of their time is spent in brief flashbacks. Yep, the disturbingly fascinating tale of mad love, brilliantly crafted by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, is mostly glossed over with the abusive element of their relationship virtually non-existent. What a waste.
Oh, they ruined the punchline.
Speaking of waste, Leto's performance was shockingly underwhelming. As I was watching him, my overriding impression was, that's it. Sure, he slithers around and mugs for the camera, but he never manages to be all that threatening or even funny. He's not terrible, but he ultimately fails to be as distinctive or memorable as Heath Ledger.
You have nothing!
Cesar Romero.
Delicious!
Jack Nicholson.
I'm glad you did.
Or even Cameron Monaghan as that kid who was kind of a pseudo-Joker.
Now that's a headline.
What's more is that Mark Hamill recently made a chilling return to the character in the animated adaptation of The Killing Joke. After witnessing that, this version had little to offer me. Maybe it would have been better if he'd had more time to develop. Come to think of it, why isn't he the main bad guy like the marketing makes him out to be? The whole Enchantress plotline feels like it's out of an entirely different flick. This is not a job for the Suicide Squad. They should be going on covert missions with tangible threats. You know, like in Batman Assault on Arkham. There's your Suicide Squad movie. The story is more contained, the Joker and Batman both have an important place in the narrative, and above all, the members of the squad are fleshed out, with each of them serving a specific purpose in the operation. It was also funnier.
Denzel! What have they done to you?
In conjunction, the setting was infinitely more intriguing. In contrast to Arkham Asylum, Midway City is dull, being mostly comprised of generic city streets and colorless buildings. When I say colorless, I do mean colorless. There are times when it's hard to tell what's going on because it's so dark. However, once you can actually make them out, the costumes and makeup do manage to impress, for the most part. The outfits look lived in, like the characters have never taken them off. They also resemble their comic book designs without sacrificing their practicality. The actors can still move around, which definitely helps during the fight scenes. While not exactly groundbreaking, the action here is shot fairly well, without a second of shaky cam. We can clearly see each character making good use of his or her abilities and weapons. It's a pretty bloodless affair since they're fighting a bunch of CG zombies, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't fun seeing these guys working as a team. That really sums up the entire piece. In the end, Suicide Squad is plagued by a plethora of problems, but has enough fun moments to make it a mild improvement over its predecessors. The performances are admirable and the direction competent, but the disjointed editing, shallow characterization, and painfully uninspired story ultimately drag it down to the point of mediocrity. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, and/or comment. Until next time.